Wow. You've shared some really fascinating stuff with us today. And maybe a little unsettling too, to be honest.
Yeah.
We're gonna dive deep today into this whole sun collapse conspiracy.
Okay.
It's this idea that's kind of floating around out there that, our sun, the star that we all depend on.
Yeah.
It might not be as stable and predictable as we think. Maybe it's a lot more precarious.
Yeah.
Possibly even like on the verge of, some sort of catastrophe.
Yeah, definitely. Your sources paint a picture that really challenges
Right.
how we typically think about the sun in science.
Right. Yeah.
Right? They're proposing this hidden reality about the sun's stability.
Yeah. And it's dramatic.
It is.
So our goal today isn't to just wave it off or dismiss it.
Yeah.
We really want to dig into the core of this theory. We want to look at the evidence that it's putting forward,
Yeah.
and then, see what mainstream science has to say about it. Explore, what the broader implications could be. So our listeners can really make sense of this. It's a fascinating idea. It's alarming, but we want to make sure that nobody feels overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So really at the heart of this whole thing is this notion that the sun is just fundamentally unstable, and maybe even more than that.
Right.
People in power are hiding that fact from the public.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of the starting point.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big departure from what we know scientifically
Yeah.
about the sun.
Yeah.
The sources that you've shared suggest that the sun isn't really in this, nice stable middle age,
Right.
as
Yeah.
we often think about it. It
Right.
could be in a much more volatile state.
And when we're talking about collapse here,
Yeah.
these are some pretty extreme scenarios. We're
Yeah.
talking like sudden implosion, like that
Yeah.
would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Massive coronal mass ejections that could just,
Wipe out our technology.
wipe out technology. And just even this idea of a rapid transformation into a black hole. Like that's a whole spectrum of doomsday scenarios.
It is. And what's really striking is the scale of these events, right? We're not talking about just like your average solar flare.
Yeah.
This is like civilization altering stuff
Yeah.
that they're proposing.
And tied in with all of this is this big idea of a cover-up.
Yeah.
That governments, scientific institutions, they know what's coming,
Right.
but they're keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
Why? What's the reason for the silence?
Well, there are a couple of ideas
Okay.
that come up in these sources. One is just, to prevent mass panic, right?
Yeah.
The logic is if everyone knew that the sun was about to go haywire,
Yeah.
society would just fall apart.
Yeah.
The other idea, and this is where it gets a little bit more,
Okay.
conspiratorial,
Yeah.
is that maybe there are elites who know what's going on,
Right.
and they're making preparation.
Maybe underground bunkers, off-world escape plans,
Oh, wow.
while the rest of us are left in the dark.
So it's that familiar story.
Yeah.
A few people at the top,
Right.
they know the truth. They're not sharing it.
Exactly.
And as with a lot of conspiracy theories, the everyday things or unusual things that happen,
Yeah.
those become like signs.
Yeah.
What are they saying are some of the warning signs of this solar collapse?
Well, they point to a few different things.
Okay.
Increased solar activity, which we do see from time to time.
Right.
Unusual weather patterns on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of throw in some more speculative stuff too, like UFO sightings,
wow.
weird astronomical events.
Mm-hmm.
It's all part of this bigger picture they're painting.
This is where things get really interesting. Let's look at the evidence they're presenting.
Okay.
So you mentioned solar flares, coronal mass ejections.
Right.
Scientists look at that and say, okay, this is normal solar activity.
But within this theory, it's given a whole different meaning.
Yeah. These events become much more ominous. They're
Uh-huh.
not just routine energy releases.
Right.
They're like warning signs
Okay.
that the sun is becoming unstable.
Okay.
It's almost like a ticking time bomb.
Oh, wow.
That's about to go off.
So even though the intensity and the frequency
Yeah.
might be within, what science considers to be normal for the sun cycle,
Right.
they're saying, no, this is different.
It's different. This is a sign.
Okay.
Something bigger is about to happen.
So how do the UFO sightings and these weird astronomical events fit into all of this?
They kind of become these missing pieces of a puzzle,
Okay.
a really alarming cosmic puzzle.
Right.
So instead of, looking at them scientifically,
Yeah.
they say, okay, well, this means that the sun's erratic behavior
Okay.
is messing with the whole solar system.
Wow.
It introduces this element of mystery.
Right.
It's like, oh, there's something going on that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not telling us.
Maybe they're not telling us. Okay.
Yeah.
This whole idea of secrecy, that's a big part of it, right?
Absolutely.
That solar research is somehow hidden. Information is being suppressed.
Yeah, anything that looks like a lack of transparency
Okay.
gets spun as proof of a cover-up.
Okay.
If scientists are unsure about something,
Yeah.
they say, see, they're hiding something.
They're hiding something.
Even if scientists just acknowledge the limits of what we know,
Yeah.
it's twisted into this confirmation that there's this big secret.
So even doomsday preppers and survivalists play a part in this.
They do?
It's like their preparations are proof that some people know what's coming.
Yeah, it creates this kind of weird feedback loop.
Okay.
The preppers are preparing because they think the collapse is coming.
Right.
And then people look at the preppers and say, well, see, they must know something.
Right.
So it just reinforces the whole fear.
And then we can't forget about those ancient prophecies. Any mention of like apocalyptic solar events in old texts,
Right.
that gets pulled in as evidence.
Of course. Yeah, they're always looking for that historical precedent.
Right.
They want to say, look, this has happened before.
It's going to happen again. Right.
Exactly.
So we've seen the evidence that they're presenting. Let's turn it around.
Okay.
What's the scientific view on all of this?
Well, scientists are coming from a very different place.
Okay.
It's based on decades of research.
Right.
Observations, data analysis.
Mm-hmm.
They've got really detailed models of the sun.
Yeah.
And the main point is that all this solar activity,
Right.
the flares, the coronal mass ejections, that's all part of a natural cycle.
Okay.
It's driven by the sun's magnetic field.
Right.
So yeah, it can impact our technology,
Yeah.
but it's not a sign that the sun's about to die.
Okay. So the increased activity that some people are pointing to,
Right.
that's just the sun doing its thing.
Pretty much, yeah. We're in a period of increased activity right now.
Right.
It's part of an 11-year cycle.
Okay.
So we see more flares, more ejections.
All right.
But it's all within the expected range.
So they've been watching this for a long time.
Yeah, centuries.
They know how it works.
Yeah, they understand the mechanisms that drive it.
What about these more extreme ideas? The implosion, the black hole scenario?
Right.
Is there any chance of that happening to our sun anytime soon?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Our sun is what we call a main sequence star.
Right.
It's not massive enough to become a black hole.
Okay.
When it finally does die, billions of years from now,
Okay.
it will become a red giant,
Okay.
then a white dwarf,
Right.
implosion, black hole that's not in the cards for our sun.
Okay.
It's like saying a middle-aged person is suddenly going to die of old age. It's just not how it works.
It seems like Occam's razor applies here.
Yeah.
The simplest explanation, the one that doesn't require a bunch of assumptions,
yeah.
is that we're just seeing normal solar variations.
Yeah. Exactly. Occam's razor would say, look, we have this well-established field of solar physics.
Mm-hmm.
It explains what we're seeing.
Right.
We don't need to invent these crazy ideas.
Right. You don't need to invent conspiracies.
Right.
So you mentioned before that psychology might be playing a role
Yeah.
in why people believe this.
Yeah.
So it's not just the fear of the unknown.
It's more than that.
What else is going on?
Well, think about it for a second.
Okay.
We live in a world that's really complicated.
Yeah.
And things feel unpredictable.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes it can be comforting
Okay.
to believe that you understand something,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's scary.
Okay.
It gives you a sense of control.
Right. I know something you don't know.
Exactly.
I'm in the know.
Yeah, and then there's the distrust of authority.
Right.
If you don't trust the government or scientists,
Yeah.
you're more likely to believe alternative explanations.
They're lying to us.
Yeah, it feels good to think you see something that other people don't.
Yeah, especially when it's something this big.
Right?
And we have to talk about the dangers of this kind of misinformation.
Yeah.
This isn't just like a harmless little idea. It can have real consequences
Right.
if people lose trust in science, in evidence-based reasoning.
And they stop believing anything.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
Then we've got the potential for panic.
Yeah.
People making bad decisions based on fear.
Right. And then we also have to think about the real problems
Yeah.
that we need to be focusing on.
Yeah.
Climate change, for example.
Right.
We need science to solve that.
Yeah, we do.
But if people don't trust science,
Right.
we're in trouble.
And all this talk about doom and gloom,
Yeah.
it can really mess with people's mental health.
Well, absolutely.
It can cause anxiety and fear.
For sure.
So we've got these two very different views. On one hand, this story of a sun that's about to collapse. On the other hand, science saying, no, the sun's stable. It's amazing how the same things can be interpreted in such different ways.
It really shows the power of belief.
And it really highlights how important critical thinking is.
Absolutely.
We have to look at the evidence, understand the scientific consensus,
Yeah.
and think about the psychology involved.
For sure.
So we've talked about the fear, the desire for answers, and just the sheer vastness and mystery of space.
A lot to take in.
What does all of this tell you about how we, as humans, process information?
Well, I think it shows that we're always trying to find patterns.
Yeah.
Even when there isn't really a pattern there.
Okay.
We want to make sense of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes our emotions can get in the way.
Right.
Fear, distrust, those can really cloud our judgment.
And make us believe things that maybe aren't true.
Exactly.
So we really need to develop our scientific literacy.
Yeah.
We need to be able to tell the difference between, real evidence and speculation.
It's an ongoing process.
It is.
Of learning and questioning.
It's a big universe out there.
It is.
Lots to learn.
For sure.
Thanks for guiding us through this one.
Happy to be here.